Hello, my name is Michal and welcome to my channel, The Golden Blue Spiral, which is the gateway to the beauties of the unity consciousness and unconditional love. In case you are new to my channel, this is the series that I call the Learning from the ETs or from the extraterrestrials. And in here we are exploring the benevolent extraterrestrial wisdom that they are sharing with us that we know already about. And we are exploring the new paradigm and the new possibilities and options that hadn't been on Earth maybe before, but they are totally available for us right now, and we have the privilege to take a look at them and enjoy them in full scale. So today what I would like to explore is the idea of the splitting prism of the parallel realities, which is a very cool phenomenon that is happening here on Earth right now as we are speaking in 2021/22 and the surrounding years around it as well. And it will help you understand how you can see people around you exploring completely different, seemingly contradictory timelines or experiences, and how it still can be okay and how it doesn't need to impact you the way you think it impacts you, how you can still be in your power and still choose the positive and optimal timelines for yourself, no matter what other people choose for themselves. So let's take a look at it. And let me begin with this quote by Bashar, who is saying, "The ultimate truth is that all truths are true from a certain perspective." In case you don't know who Bashar is, he is the first contact specialist from the Sasani extraterrestrial race, who are helping us right now to basically awaken and avoid the path of destruction that the Greys have chosen for themselves. And let's review some prerequisites. Because my entire series is kind of built in a way so it logically follows up on each other, so it is highly recommended from me that you follow the videos in the order that I present them. Because in every subsequent episode, I always assume that you already know the things that I said before. So even though it makes sense to you even without those other videos, it is possible and likely that without the previous understanding, it can sound to you like, okay, that's a nice fairy tale, but how does it work? Or it doesn't make any sense to me. And that's what I usually review in the previous episodes. So it really starts making more and more sense, even to the logically oriented people like, for example, myself. So in the previous episode, I was looking at the structure of the space-time and the timelines, and that everything exists here and now. And we looked at the timelines that everything is theoretically possible, but only some of that will be relevant to you. And out of all these relevant timelines, only some will be probable for you. And out of all these probable timelines, only some will be experienced here and now. We also explored that you automatically shift billions times per second from one parallel reality to another, all the time, automatically, without thinking about it. That time is not linear, and that your vibration and your state of being determines which timeline you choose, and therefore it allows you to realize that you are the creator of your reality all the time, 100% of time. Nobody else is creating your own reality, and we will have some examples today to explain this a little bit more deeper as well. And we were talking about the parallel realities being basically frozen pictures, or the entire universe as a frozen, motionless picture. And then when your consciousness is shifting through billions of them per second, then this creates the illusion of time. But each of the parallel realities by itself is motionless. So it's just like if I freeze like that. Okay, you get it. So here would be an example of what I see in a specific moment. Then there would be another perspective of another person that would be standing next to me, what they see in the same moment. And then, for example, a cat would see the same moment from another perspective. Now, this is obvious, but if you look at that, it's completely different pictures. Therefore, the entire universe from your own perspective is unique to you. And it also means that there is no such thing as a shared reality. I will describe it a little bit more later. And nobody else will see the reality the same way as you, which is why you are unique, why you are precious to the universe, because nobody can have the experience the way you have it. That's why all there is needs you to be there as well, to have the experience that you can offer. And of course, yes, the cat can go, for example, on my shoulder and see something like that, but it will be not exactly the same thing. It will be different. And also, as you can see, I colored the experience of the cat with different colors because they are extra dimensional beings and they are capable of seeing way more than we are currently capable of seeing. So it wouldn't be exactly the same again. And you need to add in also the beliefs, the emotional state of being, and what the person is going through, the history, and all of that will come and contribute to the energy of that particular parallel reality. You could also experience the other perspectives at the same time. That's what's called usually the out-of-body experiences, when you really stretch your senses. And that's what we are learning to do, and that's what is very natural for the Sasani and for the other extraterrestrials to do. But we are not there yet, so we usually have just one perspective at a time. And also why it is different is because if you, for example, were in this parallel reality right now and suddenly I shifted over here, it would feel to you like you just teleported because the perspective is so different. And you can do that, but that's what we are just learning to do right now. And I'm hoping that this would be more clear right now when I see it in here on the multidimensional fill strip that I used in the previous video, because in here, even though it represents the same moment, each of these pictures, just because it is a different picture, different parallel reality, it would represent a different frame. So I hope that now it is more clear how it would actually go in here. And the power of perspective is amazing because it can explain also why completely contradictory experiences can exist at the same time and still be true. Like, for example, one person can look at 6, the other person can look at 9 at the same moment, and they still can both be right. I really like this representation because it is a nice example why it doesn't make sense to fight the people who see things differently than you. It's just they may see things that you don't see and vice versa. And which is also why I like this saying, just because you are right, it doesn't mean that I'm wrong, because you haven't seen life from my point of view, and maybe I haven't seen it from your point of view. So that's why communication is very important. And in the future, when we manage to develop more, let's say, telepathic links, it will be more easier for us, more obvious. But right now we have to speak and kind of share. You know, I know it's kind of sometimes annoying to really explain everything, but that's what we have right now. So here's another saying, another quote. You are an immortal multidimensional being, dreaming that you are a limited human. Again, by Bashar. And let's now dive into the analogies so I can explain the basics a little bit better for you. So you can imagine a dream. And you can dream about meeting other people as well. And you can even have a shared experience. You know, I experienced this thing and I experienced this thing. Oh my God, this is the same thing. Yes, but in the end, your dream is your dream and the other person's dream is their dream as well. And you are creating your entire dream just by yourself and everything in it. So you are also creating your own versions of others inside your dream. They are not physically there in your dream. It's just your version of them. That's the idea. Or a different analogy, which is connected more to the communication. And maybe you know these kind of misunderstandings that are happening, like Joe thinks I love you, but then he says I kind of like you. And then Jane hears, I'm kind of like you. And then Jane's just interpret this whole thing like, oh, so is he her too? Or why is he saying that? And then she looks confused. And then Joe, based on how she looks, assumes that she doesn't like him, and then the rest of the communication is basically who said what and how did they mean it and so on. But the point is that even though you can experience the people, you can be with them, you don't typically see them exactly the way they are, but you interpret them how you believe they are, how you think and assume and understand them. So again, you in your mind create kind of your version of them, how you perceive them. Or another analogy from the artist's area, which is basically that you can draw a portrait of a person. They can pose to you, right? But just because you are posing to them, it doesn't mean that they will capture an accurate image of you. And in here, for example, I was asking my son to draw a picture of me, just for the sake of this video. And this is what he drew. As you can see, he created fairly accurate representation of me, and then he also added a cat just because he wanted a cat there, even though, as you can see in the video, there is no cat in there at all. And the people who are drawing you, they will utilize their beliefs, their filters, so for example, you may be posing like happy face, but when they are wounded and they are hurt, then they can just draw you with their mood into it. And the artists know that, right? They just express the world the way how they feel about it, not really how it is. And that's the art. So something similar is happening in our consciousness as well, that the people can be posing to you, but in the end you create your own version, your own representation of them, depending on what you believe they are. And one more analogy is more like the telephone, because you might be familiar with that when a person speaks into the telephone and then you hear it, then it's not you hearing them, it's not their voice, it is just an electrical signal that was transferred through the wire, and then a speaker in a small box speaks to you, and you sort of feel like it's them, but it is not them. It's a completely different representation of the original voice. So it is close enough for you to get the feeling of them, get the idea, but it is just a tool. And maybe you are familiar with this example when you just wanted to help somebody and you offered, I don't know, a perspective or advice and so on, but the people really didn't want to use it the way you intended, and they got hurt and they got offended, and then they started maybe even screaming at you and blaming you for how bad and mean person you are, how you don't understand them, how you always just care about yourself, whatever, and the entire situation just goes totally sideways. So this is also because they don't see you the way you are, they only see you how they believe you are. So never take things personally when people don't understand you the way you intend to, because they basically don't know who you really are in that moment. So how is it possible that we are actually having similar experiences to one another when all these parallel realities are distinct parallel realities, different pictures, they have basically no connection to one another? How is it possible that when I don't know, have a concert with another person, that we have the same or similar experience? It's because we have so-called collective agreements, and these agreements are on the soul or higher self level. Basically, they are telepathic in nature, and they constantly, continuously change and evolve and adapt. And that's basically how your higher self determines what is relevant for you and what is not. And they include things like the rules for incarnation, which can include even physics, time, and so on. Because when you incarnate on Earth, then you are going to have a completely different physics than when you incarnate in some parallel reality, totally somewhere else. Then it also determines the themes that you experience, the lessons that you want to learn, and who will help whom with what, kind of the co-creation. So it always works for all the parties, etc. Yep. So the difference between collective and individual timelines is when you live unconsciously, then you will basically just go with the mainstream, go with the flow, but mostly on the autopilot or on the survival mode. But when you live consciously, then you can lead and attune and harmonize the mainstream by your example. And suddenly you are in control. You are not just the victim of the mainstream, just being swayed by the river, but you can actually navigate the waters like on a boat. You have a map and you understand how the streams work and you can just flow, but in a desirable direction. So the collective consciousness is basically just an average delayed sum of the timelines that are resonating with your current vibration. And it is a mirror of agreements and how you respond to it all and so on. I'm also mentioning here that it is delayed specifically, just so people understand that see, your higher self will always kind of give you a chance to prove to yourself that you really are the person who you prefer to be, and that you are not dependent on what the other people are thinking about you or what the surroundings are showing to you. It's like a mirror analogy, that if you just keep shouting and fighting the mirror that it is not smiling at you, then you are wasting your time basically. So you need to smile by yourself, and then the mirror doesn't have any other choice but to smile back. That's basically how the mirror of the physical reality works. But because there is this delay, then we sometimes fail to recognize that it is us who needs to smile, so the physical reality can smile back at us as well. So let's finally get to the actual analogy of the splitting prism. So you might know this experiment from physics class, perhaps, where you have the glass prism, and then you have the white light beam on one end. Then inside the prism, just because it's a different density, it starts separating the wavelengths on different bending angles of individual frequencies. And then on the other side of the prism, you get a beautiful rainbow, where the slowest frequency, red, would be, in this case, on the top, and the fastest frequency, the violet, would be on the bottom of it. And if you remember the Hawkins scale, when we were talking about the emotions and the frequencies of the consciousness, where again the lower frequency would be kind of feeling really depressed and feeling low and anger and all of that, where the high frequencies would be love and enlightenment and joy and all those good things that we like. So I think that this might be familiar to you, and how it actually maps is just flip it back and you get exactly this. Just different frequencies, different range. See, so from their perspective, it's all just physics, and this is how we are trying to simplify it, or sometimes even oversimplify it, for us to have some visualization so it makes sense to our physical mind. So the splitting prism of the parallel realities works similarly. That now this is more like timeline, okay? The horizontal would be like the timeline as well. That on the left, the white light of the beam would be us sleepwalking. This is the old paradigm. This is the old cycle of the precession of the equinoxes, when we are sleepwalking. And then right now we are in this stage of awakening, when the individual timelines start splitting. Basically, as you are awakening, you become available what you are capable of, and all those choices that you suddenly have that you were not aware of before. And eventually we will get through this splitting of the prism, and in the end there will be huge differences between living unconsciously versus consciously. So now let's take a look at how this works. In the previous paradigm, the separation consciousness, the survival consciousness, We used to see just this white beam of light as one blob, everything merged together, when we couldn't see the possibilities clearly. And ironically, it was all blurred together. You can imagine it kind of like a fog of confusion, or sort of like in a dream time when you dream and you see sort of everything blended together. Nothing makes really sense, but it's somehow all there. But now we started seeing the individual frequencies as individual timelines and different possibilities crystallized more clearly. And while before, for example, the incoherent ones could hide in the shadow, in the fog, and could not be really seen clearly, right now the individual colors are very, very clear to see. And that's something what you can start seeing, even for example, when you look around, that all the things that were hiding before suddenly are becoming very well visible. So we can address them, so we can heal them, or so we can basically not choose them by contrast, by choosing, okay, I don't prefer that because it's obvious to me right now. So that's about that or so. And if you look at that, there is also this bandwidth of visibility. I don't know if you remember the Hawkins scale, but the lower you went into the vibration, the more you were contracting. The higher you were in the vibration, the more you were expanding your view. And this applies in here as well. So let's say that you align in here with the more negative timeline, which would be the red, the low frequency. Then you would still have only a certain range of visibility. And as you are moving forward in this timeline, then all the other options suddenly get out of your range of visibility and they become invisible to you. So you sort of align with what you want to experience or what you choose to experience, and everything else falls away. Luckily for us, it works the other way around as well, that if you align yourself with the positive timelines, let's say violet, then at this moment, we are still in this stage of splitting of the prism of the parallel realities. So it looks like that it doesn't have any changes because you can still see the red ones as well, but it is just because your field of perception is extended. Remember, the violet or the higher frequencies extending red, or the lower frequencies, and it's not about the colors, just the idea. The lower frequencies shrinking. So just because you choose to be in a positive state and you see still the negative timelines, it doesn't mean that they are affecting you, but you still see them. But let's look at the magic going forward. If I still choose to align myself with the positive timelines, even though my range of visibility still keeps expanding, eventually all these unpreferred timelines which are not aligned with myself, they are vibrationally incompatible with me, it's like a completely different TV channel, then they start falling away because now I don't see them anymore. And this will be something like, let's say, 10-15 years into the future. But right now we are somewhere over here in this window, which might end somewhere around 2023, 24 or so. And then it will accelerate even more. But on the other hand, if you choose the idea of fear, of fight and struggle and victim mode and blaming others for your misfortunes and for what's happening in your life, all these feelings are on the lower range of the scale of the vibrations. So that would lock you into the negative timeline, and as you can see, it shrinks the perception field as well, which means that for you, all these positive timelines will become invisible much more quickly than the other way around. But it is a valid choice, and I don't want to invalidate. It's just I want to give you options to be informed and to make informed choices. So then it's up to you what you prefer. If you prefer to be rather on the positive side or the negative side, both can be seen at the same time right now, but eventually, sooner or later, as the time goes, they will start falling away. And that's what they call the splitting prism of the parallel realities. So why am I sharing this? right now. And why is this important and relevant? It's because right now it is still fairly easy to switch from one timeline to another and vice versa. So even if you are in the red range of the scale and you are aligned more with the fear and the victim mode and blame and fight, you still have time and space to shift from one version of the earth to another, to experience the more positive timelines and align still with the more optimistic future as well. But in the future, it will be harder and harder as the parallel realities and the timelines will go further and further from one another. So while over here on the left, you could use, let's say, a small shift in vibration to shift from completely red to completely violet. In here it would be only, let's say, from red to blue. Over here it would be from red to green, and in the future it could be like even less. And I want to also say that just because you are right now on the red side, it doesn't mean that you cannot shift. You still can. Maybe you don't see the positive options, maybe you don't think it is even possible, and that's fine because it is outside of your range of visibility. But as you heal, as you start working on yourself, you will raise your vibration and you will see more and more, and eventually you will shift there. So I think that at this moment, everybody has the capacity to experience the purely violet timelines. This time is about transformation, so I don't think that any soul has incarnated here just to be in misery and suffering. And here is a slightly different analogy that you can imagine it sort of like two trains that are going slowly but certainly away from one another, and right now you can fairly easily just change the tracks and go on the other train. But as the trains go further and further, if you maintain the same speed, you have no way to catch up, or you would have to go much faster to catch up, and the distance that you will have to shift and the effort that it will require will be much bigger. So again, right now it is wise to work on yourself. That's why you have created space for yourself the entire pandemic, that you are pushing temporarily away everything that can distract you, so you have space to go within, to heal, to work on yourself, to choose who you prefer to be. And that's also why you can see all the negative stuff in contrast, so you can clearly see what you don't prefer, so it is easier for you to see what you do prefer and make that choice instead. And let's talk about overlapping realities for a moment, because especially if you are more on the positive side, as I am, you can probably see that there is all kinds of timelines available for you right now. And if I talk about my experience, for example, from the lockdown situation, for me personally, it has been like the most phenomenal 2 years ever in my life. I have experienced intense growth, I have experienced bliss, I have experienced joy. I personally didn't know anybody who would be sick for about a year and a half, and I didn't even know anybody who would know anybody who would be sick for about a year and a half. So that's how it can be like on the positive side. But now, because I'm helping the other people, I'm also reaching out to the other people who are actually in need of help. So now I became aware of people who are getting sick as well. But for example, then you ask somebody else and their life is like complete misery. Everybody is dying, everybody is fighting, everybody is suffering, and they are on the negative spiral. And they can perhaps live on the same street as well. By the way, just because I said that I don't know anybody, maybe they are next door, but I don't know about them because I don't interface with them. And that's how it can also look like. So how can it be? How can you work with that? Because then it really looks like that you are living on a completely different earth than they are. And in a sense you are. But at this moment there is this strange overlap when you see all the other parallel realities when in the future they will sort of disappear as well as incompatible. And the idea is that they don't need to affect you unless you choose to. And there is this analogy of glass wall that the Sasani gave to us. It's like, imagine that there is a glass wall between you and your reality and the other people's reality. You can control the vibration on your side. Then the other people control the vibration on their side. It's like living in small aquariums. And you can still see through the walls, but their vibration doesn't affect your vibration and vice versa. But you can still choose to match the vibration of what the other people are offering to you on your side, so you can experience it by yourself as well. In other words, what I'm saying is that you cannot experience what they are living through unless you decide to match the frequency on your side of the wall as well. And that is very powerful because you can see a lot of misery on a TV, even on the street or your neighbor and so on, and it still doesn't need to affect you. You can help them, but you can, if I tell my neighbor who is suffering that I have beautiful light, that she'll feel like I'm totally insensitive and that I'm crazy, that I'm ignorant, all those things. But I'm not going to lower my vibration and my state of being just so she can feel a little bit better. So she, misery loves company, that's the saying. So I can offer my compassion, I can offer different perspective, I can offer like wisdom or education and different options, different ideas. But if they don't want it, if they don't choose it, then that's pretty much all I can do. And that's pretty much what the extraterrestrials, the benevolent ones, what they do as well. They don't interfere, they don't force us to do what they think we should be doing or anything like that. They just offer what they do, and it is our free will and free choice to either follow or not follow. So that's the same idea. And of course, all this is accelerating a lot every moment, with every event, with every astrological event as well. And one of the processes that we are going through is called passing through the eye of the needle. And how the extraterrestrials describe it is that in the end, we need to be able to pass through the eye of the needle, which means to shed off everything that doesn't serve us anymore. And throughout the years, we just accumulated a lot of ideas and belief systems that just don't serve us anymore, that are not uniquely ours. Like, for example, how I should be according to my mother, my father, my society, my culture, my teacher, my boss, politicians, scientists, all the people around you just keep bombarding you how you should be, what you should think, what you should feel, all kinds of things, what you should buy. And the idea is that you don't need most of that, and you need to really be who you are truly, to be of any use to the universe. Because as I said before, the perspective of yours is unique to the universe. Nobody else can offer that perspective. So if you are not being you, you are depriving the entire universe of this experience, and it needs it. So also, this idea of the eye of the needle is that we are not gonna fit through the needle unless we are willing to shed and lighten up a lot of these beliefs. And behind that eye of the needle is the reality where the public open contact is possible, because we as a society need to change a lot just to be compatible with the vibration of the extraterrestrials, who are already coherent, who are not destroying their planet they are living on, who are not fighting one another, who are capable of understanding that the diversity is a good thing, and so on. So there will be a lot of changes required, but again, you are never changing the earth or the environment you live in, you change yourself, and then you shift into the earth, which is already more representative of your vibration. So this is kind of the idea of the eye of the needle and passing through it. And this is like a long-term process, like I would say a decade or so. Then there is this shortening of the delay between the intention and manifestation, which is basically we become much faster manifestors. If you don't know what manifestation is, basically creation or making something happen in the physical reality. And before, let's say, there was this delay which could take up to years. I remember, for example, for me, I still experience some of the energies from 4 years ago just because I still didn't process them fully. So this is how long the delay could be in the previous paradigm between the original action or intention and when it actually mirrors back to you in the physical reality. But now this is accelerating more and more, and in the future we'll become almost like instant manifestors. So you just think of something and it's right there. And I think that I said it before as well, that this is also one of the reasons why we cannot escape from here to the fifth dimension, like some people would like to, or why the extraterrestrials cannot save us from here and put us somewhere else where it could be like better. Because when you start working with these higher energies and dimensions, then at the moment you think that something could hurt you, something will hurt you. And you just create it. So we need to become responsible for what we create and for what we want for ourselves. So right now we are sort of sowing what we want to harvest, and we also need to give it enough time to allow it to grow, just like in nature. So especially right now, for example, there was this event of winter solstice, where another acceleration of the splitting of the prism of the parallel realities is happening, which means that basically you take your vibration, your preferred state of being, and plant it, and then you start feeding it or watering it with energy you want it to grow. And eventually during the next half year, you will start seeing somewhere around the next summer solstice that it will start showing up much more rapidly in the physical reality, no matter what was happening before. So yes, I'm fairly positive that even the coronavirus situation will resolve fairly soon, kind of by itself, for many people in a shocking way perhaps, but it doesn't matter, it is all for good, and we need to see what we did not want to see before. And all of this is basically just a preparation for the possible open public ET contact, and the window as it stands now is still between 2023 and 33. So the year 2022 is going to be very much about transformation, acceleration, changes, getting to the state when we become compatible with their vibration as well. So a lot of healing will be necessary as well. So just so I don't leave you with information that you don't know what to do at all, here are some recommendations what to do right now if you want to align yourself more with the positive timelines. The number one recommendation that both the extraterrestrials give and that I can share, and that has been working beautifully for me, is to follow the Sasani 4-step formula, which stands like this. Act upon your highest excitement and passion each and every moment to the best ability you have till you can take it no further, with absolutely zero assumption or insistence on what the outcome of the situation should be. And no matter what manifests, always remain in the positive state. Because the kind of the punchline to all of this is that it doesn't matter what happens, only your state of being matters. And everything can be taken positively and negatively, so it's basically your choice what you want, what you prefer to experience. And I will be offering an entire workshop to dive into this 4-step Sasani formula, which is basically a formula for fulfilling life in the most optimal way, the path of least resistance, so you don't miss anything important, so it helps you to organize your day in the optimal way, so it just speeds up synchronicities in a beautiful way. It leaves nothing relevant out, it's a complete system. But even though it looks simple, there's a lot of people who struggle with applying this in practice. So if you are interested in anything like that, then stay on the lookout for upcoming invitations. And on top of that, of course, self-care, number one, because the idea is to overflow for others rather than to drain yourself for others. Even when you are on a plane, I think that everybody gets the idea that if you don't put your mask on first, that you cannot help anybody else. And this is a similar concept in here in this situation and in life in general. It is highly advisable to remain in the eye of the storm. You may be familiar with what typhoon or tornado looks like, basically that around it, it can be really, really rough, but in the center of it, there is this eye of the storm, which is peaceful and quiet and nothing is happening. And if you manage to really remain in your axis, you can get into that state when you are just observing from the neutral point of view what everything is happening around you without really being triggered by it, without jumping into the reacting or fighting or being swayed by all that. So just observe, don't judge. That's kind of what I can advise. And remain neutral as much as you can. And if you want to choose, then choose the positive state of being. And of course, all of this will automatically put you in touch with anything that doesn't serve you anymore. So you need a great deal of self-honesty, self-reflection, courage to face your own wounds, your fears, all of that, because it doesn't serve anybody right now at this moment anymore to keep sweeping things under the carpet and hope they are gonna just go away. No, they are not gonna go away. It's just gonna be there, lowering your vibration and holding you back. So right now it is the time to look at it, face it, and deal with it. So you can do this small shift to the more positive timelines, because otherwise later it will be much, much harder. And I don't say that to scare anybody, I just want you to be responsible for yourself. And of course, this requires healing and alignment on all levels, on a mental, emotional, and physical level. We really need to understand that health in general is not about the body and the physical reality only. It is about being coherent in your thoughts and belief system, in your emotions and in your actions. If any of that is out of alignment, then the entire manifestation, the vibration, will be automatically the lowest part that is common for all these three systems, and that's what's going to manifest in the end. So if you want to go higher, you need to get all of them, all three of them higher as well. And of course, connecting to nature is one of the best things you can do right now. It doesn't matter what kind of way, if you want a pet at home, if you want a cat, if you want flowers at home, or if you want to go to the forest like I do almost every day. That's up to you, but it is highly advisable to spend as much time with nature as possibly you can, because that's the vibration that is required for us if we want to be compatible with the extraterrestrials who will come here and help us transform the society a lot, because they are aligned with nature, they are one with nature already. So we need to become a match for them so they can meet us, halfway through. And therefore we also need to redefine our definitions and belief systems. Under every emotion there is a belief. And if you don't like that emotion, you need to find that belief, redefine that belief, and that will change the emotion as well. I will talk about it sometimes later. So this is all what I wanted to share today. So I hope that it made sense to you. If you want to support me again, feel free to check out my website, and you can. I will be happy to receive any support. And that's it for today. So just to sum up a few things, remember that everything exists here and now. and that you are never a victim of anybody else. You are always in charge of the creation of your reality, of your experience, that it is totally possible that other people experience different things that can be completely contradictory to your experience, but it is fine, that's their choice, and that's what they are going to explore, and you are going to explore your thing, and sooner or later your paths may just go away completely until it becomes out of your sight, and that's still fine. Also, just because you can see all the unpreferred things, it doesn't mean that it needs to affect you. You still need to match the frequency of the offering, kind of accept the gift, the offering, to get it inside of you. So please just don't accept that offering. You don't have to eat every shit on the table that somebody puts there. So feel free to be yourself without, I'm sorry about that. That was gross, I know. Anyway, be yourself and be fine. I wish you a beautiful day, and